Have you ever noticed that the harder you try to control your existence, the more it seems to spiral into disorder? You strategize, force outcomes, and yet everything collapses. But what if true strength isn't found in control, but in tranquility? In this journey, you'll discover 11 ancient Stoic principles that will teach you how to remain serene and use that serenity as your greatest advantage. These aren't just elegant theories or empty platitudes. These are practical strategies tested across millennia by Stoic philosophers that can transform your mindset and actions. Are you prepared to learn how calmness can guide you to fulfillment? Let's begin. Before we dive in, allow me to share the story of Alexander Thornfield, a man who endured one of life's most severe trials and who, through his tranquility and Stoic philosophy, managed to survive. Alexander was a Royal Navy commander, a professional trained for every contingency. Someone with complete mastery over his vessel, his missions, and his decisions, until one fateful day during a peacekeeping mission in the Mediterranean when everything transformed in a heartbeat. His ship was attacked, leaving no time for contemplation, only the impact, the descent, the desperation as he abandoned ship. Before he even reached shore, he knew what awaited him. He didn't wash up in friendly territory, he landed directly into the hands of insurgents. They captured him, beat him, dragged him as if he were merely cargo that had washed ashore, and when he arrived at the makeshift prison camp, his real ordeal began. They restrained him, tortured him, and left him in isolation for days with no human contact. 5 years, not 5 days, not 5 months, 5 years confined in a tiny cell, uncertain if he would ever see daylight again, uncertain if each dawn would be his last. Many others in his situation collapsed mentally. They surrendered hope and allowed fear to devour them. But Alexander didn't break, not because of superior physical strength or greater endurance, but because he possessed something that made him invincible: control over his own mind. Alexander wasn't just a military officer, he was also a student of Stoicism. While imprisoned, he recalled the words of Epictetus: "It is not events themselves that harm us, but our interpretation of them." He couldn't control his circumstances, but he could control how he experienced them. He couldn't prevent the beatings, but he could prevent them from conquering his spirit. He couldn't escape physically, but he could preserve the one thing they couldn't take: his attitude. So he did something remarkable. Instead of surrendering to despair, he decided to find ways to resist. He became the secret leader among the prisoners, developing a coded communication system so they wouldn't feel isolated. He taught them psychological resistance techniques, how to prevent their captors from breaking their spirits. While his jailers attempted to destroy him, he continuously repeated to himself, "This does not define me. I am stronger than this." And he was. He endured, and when he was finally liberated after 5 years of horror, someone asked him, "How did you survive it?" His answer was straightforward: "I accepted reality but never lost faith in my ability to overcome it." Thornfield understood what many never grasp: you don't control what happens to you, but you do control how you respond. That was the key to his survival. So tell me, what's stealing your serenity today? A workplace issue? An argument? A difficult day? Do you feel like everything has spiraled beyond your control? If Alexander could find strength in the midst of unimaginable nightmare, so can you. No matter how challenging your situation appears, you always maintain control over one element: your response. And I'm going to show you how. Tranquility is your greatest weapon. Imagine yourself as a Formula One driver, hands gripping the wheel firmly, engines roaring, the track a scorching desert of asphalt. You're approaching the final stretch, mere seconds from victory. Suddenly, taking a sharp turn, your car loses traction. The wheel feels weightless, control slipping away as the world accelerates around you. This is your defining moment. You have two options: first, panic, freeze, react with fear, and jerk the wheel impulsively without thinking. Result? You end up in the gravel, off the track, race over. Second option, remain calm. Feel the car sliding but don't allow desperation to take over. Ease off the accelerator momentarily, adjust with precision, and regain control at exactly the right moment. The finest drivers aren't the fastest, they're those who maintain composure when everything spins out of control. They don't fight against the curve, they understand it and use it to their advantage. Life operates similarly. Success isn't about avoiding problems, it's about learning to respond with clarity when they inevitably appear. If you observe the most accomplished individuals, you'll notice a common trait. It's not that they never face crises or lead perfect lives. It's that when the world turns against them, they stay focused. They don't lose control, they don't allow fear to dictate their choices. Victoria Harlow, author of The Barrier Becomes the Path, calls this a strategic advantage. She explains that true power isn't found in speed or aggression but in the ability to remain composed when everything appears to be disintegrating. This isn't empty motivation. A calm mind makes superior decisions. Emperor Aurelius understood this centuries ago. If you are disturbed by something external, it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your judgment about it. Modern neuroscience confirms this understanding. When we react impulsively, the amygdala, the brain region responsible for emotional responses like fear, anger, and frustration, takes control. But when we maintain calm, we activate the prefrontal cortex, the area that enables us to reason, evaluate, and make intelligent decisions. Research from the Institute of Cognitive Neuroscience in London discovered that individuals who train their ability to remain calm under pressure not only experience reduced stress but also achieve superior long-term outcomes. They don't make decisions based on momentary emotions, they act according to strategy. I understand your thought, this sounds wonderful in theory, but how do you apply it in reality? Because certainly, it's simple to discuss maintaining calm while watching a video or reading an article. The real challenge emerges when reality strikes, when the curve appears without warning and you feel control slipping away. That's why I offer 2 strategies to train your mind starting today. First, the observer technique. Imagine you're not experiencing the situation directly but rather watching a film. What advice would you give the protagonist? This exercise helps create emotional distance and think more objectively. Second strategy, the one that truly prepares you for success. Don't wait for crisis to practice. Train your calmness daily. For example, imagine returning from grocery shopping. As you unpack, the egg carton decides to perform acrobatics off the counter onto the floor. Naturally, your first impulse might be to shout, curse gravity, and wonder why fate despises you. But this is your test. If something this minor can disturb your peace, how will you respond when confronting a genuine problem? If you can't control your mind during insignificant moments, you won't manage during significant ones either. Calmness doesn't magically appear when needed most, it's a muscle developed through consistent training. So I ask you, do you want to continue reacting like a novice driver who panics at the first sharp turn? If calmness makes you stronger, why continue allowing the world to push you off course? 2. Can you truly control everything? Have you experienced days where nothing proceeds according to plan? You wake early, thinking, today will be excellent. Everything is meticulously scheduled. You'll complete that important project, exercise, prepare a special dinner, nothing can possibly go wrong. But then everything begins unraveling. Your supervisor requests something urgent that wasn't anticipated. A friend cancels dinner without notice. You call someone expecting support but instead receive a comment that ruins your mood. Frustration builds, nothing is proceeding as expected, and it's unbearable. Here's where the real problem begins. We don't merely want to control our own lives, we want to control others too. We want people to react as we anticipate, our plans to unfold exactly as designed, everything to proceed flawlessly. How often has this happened to you? How often have you attempted to change someone, to make them see reason, to convince them to approach things as you believe they should? Perhaps you advise a friend who repeatedly makes identical mistakes. Or try convincing your partner to adopt your perspective. Or wish your parents would worry less about you, that they'd understand your thinking. When they don't, anger and frustration follow, and everything seems to collapse. The problem isn't the situation, it's your attachment to the belief that you can control it. Ivan Dimitrov, investor and an entrepreneur, explained this in his discussions about happiness and personal achievement. Suffering emerges from the desire to control the uncontrollable. He described how many spend their lives attempting to force outcomes, manipulate circumstances, or change others when the key is actually releasing control and focusing exclusively on what remains within our influence. He was correct, the more you try forcing outcomes, the more you resist reality, and the more anxiety, frustration, and stress accumulate. This isn't merely a modern concept. Epictetus stated over 2,000 years ago, some things are within our power, while others are not. Only those who cling to what they cannot control will suffer. Science supports this understanding. Stanford University researchers analyzed uncertainty's impact on emotional well-being by dividing participants into two scenarios. The first group received a task where they maintained complete control over outcomes. The second group received a task where results depended on external factors beyond their influence. Researchers then measured stress levels and discovered that individuals who accepted uncertainty demonstrated lower anxiety, greater adaptability, and more stable emotional states. Meanwhile, those who clung to control experienced constant frustration and exhaustion. Which side would you prefer? The side accepting what they cannot change and focusing on what they can, or the side fighting against the wind expecting it to change direction for them? If you want to navigate obstacles without being continuously derailed, I offer two challenges. First, the "so what" challenge. When something doesn't proceed as planned, ask yourself, so what? Will this matter in 5 years? Often, stress originates from things you won't remember months later. Now for the second challenge. I hesitate mentioning it because I anticipate your immediate rejection, but trust that it could transform your life. We'll call it controlled chaos. One day weekly, stop planning everything meticulously. Allow yourself to flow naturally without rigid expectations. You'll be astonished at how your mind adapts and how releasing control actually increases it. Life isn't a straight highway where everything follows your predetermined route. It resembles sailing open waters. You cannot prevent waves, storms, or directional shifts, but you can learn to adjust your sails. You can release what remains beyond your control and focus on the only elements truly within your power: your decisions, your attitude, and your response to every situation. That's where genuine success lies, not in attempting to control everything, but in knowing how to adapt, flow, and manage what's truly within your grasp. 3. Be grateful before complaining. My friend, your brain resembles a garden. What you plant is what grows. If you daily water it with stress, complaints, and negativity, you'll cultivate a barren, thorny wasteland. This isn't merely metaphorical. Scientists at the University of Berkeley wanted evidence, so they conducted an experiment. They divided participants into two groups with a simple task. The first group recorded 3 things they felt grateful for nightly, regardless how small. The second group could write about anything without specific guidelines. Weeks later, they examined the changes. The results were remarkable. The first group, those recording gratitude daily, showed increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for calmness, decision-making, and emotional well-being. It was as if their brains received specialized training to focus on positives and manage stress more effectively. The second group showed no change. Their cognitive garden remained barren. Gratitude might seem trivial, but it isn't. I know from personal experience. I once considered it pointless too. But one day I experimented, recording 3 things I felt grateful for each morning. Over time, my mindset completely transformed. I understood what Seneca had expressed centuries earlier: it is not happiness that makes us grateful, but gratitude that makes us happy. Consider this: it's Monday morning. You open your eyes thinking you need vacation, that everything would improve with a different job, different home, different life. While washing your face, your mind continues: if I had more money, more time, if circumstances were easier, then I'd finally find peace. But when has more ever been enough? The truth is, regardless how much you achieve, there will always be something else to desire, something else to pursue, something you perceive as lacking. Meanwhile, what you're truly losing is your peace of mind. If simply acknowledging life's positive aspects can literally strengthen your mind and help maintain calm during difficult moments, why resist? First, verbally express gratitude at day's beginning, with intention. Imagine sitting up in bed, stretching your arms, and declaring energetically, "Thank you." Initially it might feel ridiculous, but try it. When you begin your day expressing gratitude, your brain shifts focus. Instead of dwelling on what's missing, it notices what's already present. Second, record 3 positive elements before sleeping, and don't merely repeat identical ones nightly. Seek details, perhaps an exceptionally delicious tea, or unexpected laughter with colleagues. If you don't train your mind to perceive good, it will only recognize bad. Third, focus on what you possess, not what you lack. Life isn't about completing an endless checklist of desires. If you cannot appreciate current possessions, you won't appreciate them even with twice as much. The peace you seek, the clarity you need, and the success you desire aren't found in what remains unattained, but in how you choose to perceive your life. Remember this truth: complaining changes nothing, gratitude changes everything. 4. Think well and attract the best. Let me share a story about my colleague. Several months ago, she received life-altering news, a serious health diagnosis, the kind that inverts your world. Suddenly everything became uncertain: hospitals, medical examinations, fear, and worst of all, her own mind working against her. Every morning she woke with identical thoughts: what if conditions worsen? What if I never recover? Why is this happening to me? With such thoughts, days felt endless. She felt trapped in a tunnel without exit until one day, during another long hospital wait, she encountered something that resonated. It was a lecture by Elizabeth Vargas, the motivation coach, who stated something simple yet powerful: the quality of your thoughts defines the quality of your life. My colleague contemplated this idea, wondering where she'd heard something similar. After researching, she discovered that Emperor Aurelius had expressed almost identical sentiment nearly 2 millennia ago: the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. That's when realization struck: she couldn't control her illness, but she could control her approach to it. She decided to implement a small change. Each morning before rising, she forced herself to contemplate something positive, something to anticipate regardless how small. Today I'll discover something that makes me laugh. Today I'll cherish every moment with my family. Today I'll appreciate what I still have. Interestingly, her medical situation remained unchanged, but her method of confronting it completely transformed. Emperor Aurelius, among history's most powerful rulers, understood that his greatest battle was against his own thoughts. He didn't fixate on problems, he focused on solutions. He didn't obsess over potential negative outcomes, he concentrated on confronting whatever emerged. That was his secret to remaining resilient amid chaos, and it can become yours too. How are you utilizing your mind? Are you programming it to attract positive outcomes or filling it with worries that only impede progress? First, reframe negative thoughts. Whenever you catch yourself thinking, "This is catastrophic," or "I can't manage this," pause and transform the thought. Say instead, "This is challenging but I can learn from it," or "It won't be simple, but I'll find solutions." This isn't about deceiving yourself, it's about training yourself to perceive solutions rather than problems. Second, distance yourself from consistently negative individuals. Negativity spreads like contagion. If you spend days surrounded by complaints, drama, and people who perpetually find reasons to surrender, you'll adopt similar thinking. Instead, seek individuals who inspire progress, who discuss possibilities rather than limitations. Third, visualize positive outcomes before beginning your day. This isn't about fantasizing impossible scenarios, it's about imagining yourself handling situations effectively. Picture how you want to feel, how you can respond calmly to whatever emerges. When your mind has rehearsed success, achieving it becomes considerably easier. Ultimately, it reduces to this: your mind filters your perception of reality. If you train yourself to think constructively, you'll attract opportunities, make superior decisions, and become your optimal self. So my friend, what do you wish to attract into your life? Record it with conviction, because everything begins with a thought. 5. Your attention defines your reality. Consider this: while walking down streets, what captures your focus? Do you notice rushing pedestrians, traffic congestion, noise, problems? Or do you observe positive details like sunlight illuminating buildings, breeze rustling through trees, a stranger's smile? One thing remains clear: reality is identical for everyone, but your perception depends on where you direct attention. It resembles that famous bus meme: two people on identical journey, one admiring breathtaking landscape, the other miserable, staring at a nearby rock. The difference isn't the path, it's which side they chose to observe. Life functions similarly. If you exclusively focus on gray areas, what's wrong, what's missing, your world will perpetually feel like a stone barrier. But turn your gaze toward the right direction, and you might realize the view was always beautiful. Theodore Hartley once stated in an interview, "If you desire success, happiness, if you want to achieve any goal, you must learn to ignore distractions and focus exclusively on what truly matters." That has been his secret to success, not luck, but knowing where to direct energy. Your attention resembles an Instagram filter. Depending which filter you apply, the image transforms completely. If your filter contains complaints, worries, and problems, everything surrounding you appears dark and negative. But if you learn to switch filters, if you choose to perceive what remains within your control, what you can leverage, your entire world transforms. Where have you been directing your attention recently? Try this exercise. Recall something that caused upset or anxiety recently. Was it a comment, a workplace issue, something on social media? How did it affect you? Now imagine that instead of focusing on that, you had directed attention towards something positive, something within your control, perhaps a small daily achievement, a peaceful moment, a pleasant conversation. Would your mental state have remained identical? If you want to regain calmness and focus on what truly leads to success, first undertake a mental diet. Just as you monitor food consumption, monitor what nourishes your mind. Reduce negative news consumption, filter social media content, question whether what you're viewing adds value or merely depletes energy. Your mind resembles a garden, what you water grows. Second, perform an attention reset. When trapped in negative thoughts, change focus literally. Take a walk, breathe deeply, look around, find something different. If worries accumulate, change the question. Instead of thinking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can I learn from this experience?" Third, surround yourself with people who reinforce what you want to attract. If you only spend time with complainers, who perceive problems everywhere, who never offer solutions, you'll adopt identical thinking. Seek people who inspire you, who challenge improvement, who help maintain focus on what truly matters. As Epictetus said, "Where your attention goes, there is your soul." What you focus on becomes your experience. If you train attention to focus on strengthening elements, you become more resilient, make better decisions, and maintain calm in any circumstance. 6. Without rest, your mind shuts down. How often have you forced continued effort when already exhausted? You sit before your computer attempting to focus, but your mind resembles a television with poor reception. You repeatedly read identical sentences without comprehension. You consume coffee after coffee, yet clarity remains elusive. Worst of all, instead of acknowledging your need for rest, you push harder. Do you genuinely believe that will improve performance? Of course not. You simply make additional mistakes and feel increasingly worse. Here's an unspoken truth: rest isn't luxury, it's necessity. Consider your phone. What happens after non-stop use without recharging? It powers down. No matter how vigorously you shake it, strike it, or demand work, it remains inoperative until receiving what it needs: rest. Why treat your brain differently? The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Seneca clarified, "Even the sharpest blade needs rest to preserve its edge." What purpose serves a perfect weapon if worn until it no longer cuts? What purpose serves a brilliant mind if exhausted until it no longer thinks clearly? Seneca allocated time for reflection, calm, and recovery, not perceiving it as wasted time but as strategy for returning stronger. Contemporary neuroscience confirms this understanding. Rest improves memory, learning, and self-regulation. To prevent sounding like tedious lecture, consider this simple analogy: your brain resembles a whiteboard. Daily you record everything learned, accomplished, and decided. Without erasing, space diminishes, clutter increases, and confusion multiplies. Sleep resembles wiping that board clean, creating space for new ideas, new lessons, and clearer decisions. Now you understand its importance. I anticipate your response, but my life is too chaotic for proper rest. Don't worry, here are 3 strategies to introduce more calm into your life. First, reduce screen time before sleeping. This may sound cliché, but logic underlies it. Blue light from devices tricks your brain into believing it's still daytime. If you retire while watching videos, reading news, or scrolling social media, don't expect immediate mental deactivation. Second, establish a bedtime routine. Nothing complicated: read several book pages, write briefly, or simply sit quietly, allowing physical relaxation. The key is signaling your brain that disconnection time has arrived. Third, heed your body. If you feel need for pause, obey it. Rest isn't weakness, it's strategy. Athletes don't train continuously because they understand performance depends on recovery. You are life's athlete, believe me, resting isn't wasting time, it's recharging energy for increased strength tomorrow. If you truly desire achievement, you don't need additional hours of mindless work, you need more clarity, more focus, and more calmness. 7. Your morning shapes your destiny. Imagine this scenario: Emperor Aurelius and Seneca awaken in the 21st century. Aurelius opens his eyes and immediately reaches for his phone. He checks notifications, sees unread Senate emails, observes Twitter criticism regarding his latest decree, and discovers news reporting frontier troubles. He sighs, reluctantly rises, and while pouring coffee already contemplates the day's exhaustion. Seneca, conversely, awakens calmly. Before moving, he breathes deeply and considers, what kind of day do I desire? He rises unhurriedly, stretches, drinks water, and retrieves his journal for reflection. Without checking his phone, he walks outside, feeling fresh air against his face. One begins dragged down by circumstances, the other assumes control. Which do you more closely resemble? Many people begin their day reactively. They wake, check phones, fill minds with information and concerns before even leaving bed. They don't prepare mentally, don't direct focus, just throw themselves into the day uncontrolled. Imagine if instead of reacting to everything, you chose how to begin your day. Science confirms this isn't merely philosophical. Dr. Sophia Lingstrom, wellness expert, explains that establishing clear morning routines is essential for stress management and maintaining calm. Her research demonstrates that when people begin days with intention, whether reading, meditating, or simply avoiding distractions, anxiety levels decrease while focus ability increases. How are you beginning your days? Let's approach differently. Imagine today represents your turning point. I'll guide you through an ideal morning so you experience what beginning the day in control feels like. When opening your eyes, avoid touching your phone for 30 minutes. I understand this sounds challenging, but consider, do you genuinely need information flooding your mind before you're fully awake? Give your brain respite before bombarding it with messages, news, and social media. What should you do instead? Something creating sense of control, something small but providing feeling that the day has already begun successfully. Make your bed, stretch, prepare quiet breakfast, meditate briefly. The activity matters less than the intention behind it. Finally, visualize the day you desire. Don't allow circumstances to control you, take control of them. Momentarily imagine how you want to respond to challenges, how you want to feel, what you want to accomplish. If uncertain how to train your mind for clear visualization, continue reading to discover why this skill can transform everything. How will you begin your mornings from now on? 8. What you visualize, you build. Has this happened to you? You decide to purchase a vehicle. You research models, contemplate colors, details, how you'd appear behind the wheel. Suddenly you begin seeing it everywhere, on streets, in advertisements, parking lots. It seems the universe sends signals, right? It's not magic, it's your brain. When focusing attention on something, your mind begins detecting it more easily. Not because it suddenly appears, but because you've activated the appropriate filter. This doesn't apply exclusively to vehicles but to everything in life. Epictetus summarized, what you feed your mind becomes your reality. If you spend days contemplating problems, deficiencies, hardships, that's exactly what you'll perceive everywhere. But start focusing on progress and opportunities, and your mind begins finding them. Here's the secret, your brain doesn't distinguish between vivid imagination and actual experience. Rebecca Northfield, visualization expert, explains that clearly picturing your day isn't merely mental exercise, it's genuine training for success. Try this, close your eyes and imagine your ideal home. Don't merely think about it, experience it mentally. What colors adorn walls? How does light filter through windows? What aromas fill the space? What music plays? How does it feel moving through rooms? Now imagine everything required to obtain it, not as distant fantasy but as authentic path. Visualize each step, the effort, decisions, small daily victories bringing you closer. Does it feel more substantial? Good, because the clearer you perceive it mentally, the easier finding real paths toward it becomes. How can visualization help maintain calm and achieve success? First, create detailed mental scripts for goals. Saying, I want improvement or I want success isn't sufficient. Imagine specifics. If seeking confidence, visualize specific situations demonstrating confident behavior. If wanting successful business, picture a typical day from morning coffee through final meeting. Your brain requires clear images to establish direction. Second, surround yourself with images and stimuli reinforcing your vision. Notice how athletes decorate their spaces with motivational quotes and images of their idols? That's deliberate. Your environment influences your thoughts, so leverage this advantage. Place goal reminders where visible. Change phone wallpaper to something inspiring. Read materials reinforcing appropriate mindset. Calmness emerges from knowing your destination, and success isn't luck, it's about visualizing desires and approaching each step intentionally. 9. Breathe and regain control. Imagine a high-stakes card game. Air feels heavy around the table as players examine their hands. True experts don't focus on cards, they observe opponents. In poker, winners aren't necessarily those holding best cards but those who play them effectively. Beginners reveal themselves through every breath, nervous movement, perspiration drop. Professionals remain impassive, they don't display impatience or allow opponents to read their thoughts. They understand that in poker, like life, whoever loses control loses the game. Now substitute poker chips with words, the table with real-life confrontation. Someone challenges you, provokes you, attempts drawing you into emotional reaction. If you take bait, if you react impulsively, if you explode without thinking, you've already lost. But maintaining calm, breathing before acting, choosing response rather than surrendering it, that's power. Picture this: during disagreement, your heart races, blood boils, words accumulate ready for discharge. You feel attacked, misunderstood, and every instinct screams to react, defend, respond immediately. But wait, pause. This moment determines everything. You can explode with immediate thoughts or implement something Stoics mastered: remain calm. This isn't merely about avoiding embarrassment during arguments, it's the difference between imprisonment in impulsive reactions and taking life control while progressing toward success. Emperor Aurelius practiced this daily. Without it, his empire would have quickly disintegrated. That's why he stated, "Calm yet determined, cheerful yet steady, that is the person who follows reason in all circumstances." That's the key. Your mind can become greatest ally or worst enemy depending whether you control it or it controls you. During stress and tension, what should you do first? Control your breathing. This may seem overly simple, but consider, whoever doesn't control breathing doesn't control mind, and whoever doesn't control mind cannot control life. Next time you approach losing control, apply these techniques for maintaining calm. First, the 4-7-8 technique: inhale 4 seconds, hold 7, exhale 8. This works because it forces physical relaxation, like resetting your nervous system. Also, practice compassion. If someone responds angrily or frustratedly, typically it's unrelated to your immediate statement, it's something deeper beyond your perception. Perhaps they're experiencing difficult day, difficult life, or simply don't know how to manage their thoughts. Here's your advantage: you decide whether to enter their chaos. Ultimately, shouters lose while the calm prevail. Remember, when life pressures you, don't react impulsively, breathe first, decide later. Real success belongs not to those surrendering to initial impulses but to those who wait, think, and act precisely. 10. Seek silence, find answers. Consider this scenario: you awaken and before leaving bed, your hand already grasps your phone, notifications, emails, social media. Outside awaits traffic, honking, partial conversations, music blasting from every direction. Returning home, you activate television, check additional messages, filling every moment with noise. Without realization, life becomes whirlwind where silence never exists. Merely contemplating this feels overwhelming, doesn't it? Why do we behave this way? Because silence terrifies us, makes us so uncomfortable we fill every second with noise. But here's truth you might resist: silence isn't enemy but portal, gateway to another realm where answers emerge not externally but internally. Without crossing that threshold, you cannot imagine what you're missing. Consider the film Journey to Clarity, where the protagonist, trapped in unfulfilling existence, abandons everything embarking on self-discovery. This doesn't occur amid chaos but in silence at Japanese monastery. She confronts her greatest challenge, solitude with her thoughts. It isn't simple. Her mind screams, anxiety intensifies, escape beckons. Then transformation occurs. When external noise fades, she begins hearing her genuine needs. In silence, she discovers answers she sought, not because someone provides them, but because she finally hears her own voice. Stoics understood this centuries ago. Seneca stated we often suffer more from mental noise than external noise. We worry about unrealized futures, replay past mistakes, fill minds with unnecessary thoughts that imprison us in constant mental tempest. But individuals learning to find calm in silence learn to find calm in any situation. Science substantiates this understanding. Duke University research clarified, when spending time in silence, something remarkable happens within your brain. It doesn't deactivate or stand by, it does precisely opposite. It resembles searching for something in disorganized room. You look everywhere, rummage through items, open drawers, but increased searching complicates finding. Everything is chaotic. Then you pause, breathe, organize slightly, and suddenly there it is, always before you. This activates the default mode network, neural system helping connect ideas, solve dilemmas, find clarity. It's as if your mind, freed from distractions, begins housekeeping, organizing thoughts, assembling answers previously beyond reach. If your mind resembles constant storm where answers remain elusive, try these approaches. First, disconnect 30 minutes daily, no screens, no conversations, just silence. Morning, evening, or anytime you permit yourself. Second, take silent walks without music or podcasts, just you and your thoughts. Initially uncomfortable, eventually you'll recognize this space where ideas and solutions emerge previously invisible. Third, record what emerges during silent moments, thoughts, reflections, doubts. Documentation helps clarify and recognize thinking patterns. Consider this truth: if you cannot tolerate solitude with your thoughts, who else would desire that company? Silence isn't enemy but tool needed for calming mind and guiding toward success. 11. Use your hands, calm your mind. Let me share the story of a woman who couldn't remain still, not from impatience but because her mind overflowed with questions. Merely observing the world proved insufficient. She needed to understand it, touch it, disassemble and rebuild it manually. She drew continuously, designed previously non-existent machines, studied anatomy, wrote incessantly, not merely from curiosity but understanding her mind functioned optimally when her hands remained active. When mentally blocked, she sketched. When thoughts became chaotic, she organized them into drawings. When words proved inadequate, she allowed action to communicate. That was her secret. She didn't await clarity, she created it with her hands. That woman was Helena Viskovitov, genius certainly, but also someone who discovered what many still don't comprehend. When mind overwhelms, the solution isn't additional thinking but doing. What do you do when stress dominates? When ideas accumulate incomprehensibly? When anxiety paralyzes? Emperor Aurelius clarified, well-directed action brings peace to the mind. Calm doesn't emerge from passive waiting for storms to pass but from taking action. Imagine this workplace scenario: everything spirals beyond control, emails accumulating, phone constantly ringing, urgent requests multiplying. Chest pressure builds, mind races as if requiring simultaneous response to everything. You want calmness but simply cannot access it. Worst of all, you wish to become that person who manages pressure effectively, who remains centered, makes sound decisions without being overwhelmed by chaos. Because ultimately, those individuals progress, they succeed. But how, when everything seems ablaze? To calm the mind, use your hands. I understand this sounds simplistic, but it works. First, dedicate minimum 10 minutes daily to manual activity, drawing, handwriting, cooking, repairing, gardening, anything tactile. I'm not suggesting suddenly sketching in notebooks amid office chaos, but establish this habit, a daily moment disconnecting from noise, allowing mental reset. Second, eliminate distractions. Forget multitasking, disable notifications, avoid background music with lyrics. Just you, your hands, and the activity. When your mind focuses on single physical task, stress dissolves imperceptibly. Third, notice afterward how you feel. Perhaps not all problems resolved, but I promise you'll experience clarity previously absent, as if storms temporarily subsided. When words prove insufficient, let your hands communicate. Sometimes silence during simple manual tasks speaks more eloquently than 1,000 chaotic thoughts. What will you first do with your hands to calm your mind? Calmness isn't merely absence of chaos, it's the key to making better decisions, acting with clarity, and progressing toward success without allowing stress to dominate. Daily you have opportunity to train your mind, to choose responses to surroundings, to become someone who doesn't get swept away by noise but learns to direct it. Don't wait for life to simplify or chaos to diminish. Real transformation occurs when you learn finding calm amid challenges, when deciding to focus on controllable elements while ceasing to waste energy on uncontrollable ones. What truly matters isn't whether you succeed at everything, but that you develop the mental fortitude to remain unshaken when challenges arise. The ancient Stoics, Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, didn't achieve greatness through absence of adversity, but through mastery of their response to it. They understood what modern society often forgets: external circumstances don't determine your peace, your perception of them does. So I ask you, will you continue allowing every setback to derail your progress? Or will you implement these timeless principles to transform how you navigate life's inevitable challenges? Remember Alexander Thornfield, who survived 5 years of imprisonment not through physical strength, but through mental discipline. If he could maintain serenity in those conditions, imagine what you might accomplish with the same principles applied to your daily life. The path to tranquility begins with a single decision: the choice to stop fighting against reality and instead master your response to it. This isn't just philosophy, it's practical wisdom that has endured for millennia because it works. Your journey to a calmer, more powerful mindset starts now. Will you take the first step?